Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio. And now, here's our host, Dr. Vanessa Anceloni.
Welcome, dear listener, to our live program here at Kardec Radio. Today, we're dedicating the whole program to a very important topic. It's about saying yes to life. Many listeners have been asking us to address the Spiritist view on being a parent, on abortion, on family planning, prenatal education. There's so much for us to unfold at this program, and you can participate either at calling in at 858-769-4705. When you call in, somebody's going to screen you, so soon after we can open the line so you can make your comment or ask your question. If you feel like what majority actually prefer to send us an email, just go to kardecradio@gmail.com and we'll be happy to answer to your questions. Actually, many listeners have been emailing us, and we are so joyful because they really send comments, questions that will be helping many, many people. After all, we have listeners in more than 61 countries around the world. Of course, this is all a part of a big team that really helps spread the news about Spiritism to everyone around the world, comforting the hearts and the souls of everyone and nourishing them as well. Also, if you want, you can go to blogtalkradio.com/Kardec Radio, and we have a chat that goes with the very program. And you can go there and type in your comments, your questions, and we'll be happy to relay it to Kardec Radio's audience. In this very program, we're going to share with you a most important view on life. After all, if you're there listening right now, it's because somebody allowed you to be here, meaning your mother. No matter if she abandoned you or not, as Joana de Angelis says, you'll never be able to repay for what she has given you, which is the opportunity to reincarnate, including the father as well. Of course, no matter where they are in the world, no matter if they have taken care of you or not, from the Spiritist perspective, we have loving debt to our biological parents, and of course to the ones who brought us up. But our biological parents, for sure, especially the mother, because she's the one who bare the whole 9 months of gestation to bring you to life. Of course, it's a collaboration, it's a co-creation between the mother and God, as well as the father, and it's beyond words to understand it all. But we're going to discuss this and much, much more here. Again, we're going to talk about when the spirit connects to the physical body. Is there life at the very first day in which conception happened, or does it happen later on? Some people think that the spirit connects after birth. Is that true? What does Spiritism say? Is parenthood really a mission? That was actually a question that Kardec asked the spirits in the Phenomenal Spirits book. This is question 582. Can parenthood be considered a mission? And the answer is fascinating. It is without a doubt a mission, and at the same time a very great duty that involves parents more than they might think. Well, he keeps on answering this, but we're going to leave it after the first message that we're going to use to open this program. Let us remember that in this program, we are here to address questions that were mostly raised by our listeners. People have, throughout the last year and a half, sent questions pertaining this topic, and many of our segments, also by Kardec Radio's team, will address these very issues. Dr. Marco and Joyce Magalhães will also talk about a feature on the Spiritist take on parenting. Bernadette Leal is going to tell parents how to teach children to deal with their life changes, which is so important. We will also answer two main questions that the listeners have asked us about abortion and about the possibility of living this life and not being a parent. And then later, Kirsten DeMello is going to unfold a feature on the law of preservation addressing the embrace of charity. And at the very end, Luis Sergio Marotta is going to tell us more about the final part of Chapter 1 in the Gospel According to Spiritism. There is so much for us to share with you today. And if you have a question, again, 858-769-4705, or you can tell us here at the chat room of blogtalkradio.com/Kardec Radio. Sending us an email or asking your question through Facebook at Kardec Radio is also an alternative. For now, dear listener, I know you're excited to go straight to the point about the very topics that pertain to the very reasons why we are here living this reincarnation. But to begin and set the tone for this beautiful program, let us listen to Chapter 8 of the little but very powerful book, Happy Life, by Joana de Angelis. By the way, you can buy it at the Spiritist Society of Baltimore's website. Just go to ssbaltimore.org. There's an online bookstore, and you can buy this powerful message book, Happy Life, by Joana de Angelis, through the mediumship of Divaldo Franco.
Always live in peace. A clear conscience, without remorse for past acts or fear of the future, creates harmony. Nothing from outside can disturb a tranquil heart, which beats to the rhythm of duty honestly done. Peace is worth whatever you must do to achieve it.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Available for purchase the book, This Obsession, psychographed by the medium Francisco Cândido Xavier. In this book, the spirit André Luiz recruits new groups of workers of goodness whose intent is to aid in the readjustment of those no longer in the physical plane. Learn more by purchasing your copy at www.sgny.org.
Kardec Radio, live every Saturday at 11 a.m.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Listen to our sister radio, Bazera Online Web Radio, retransmitting Kardec radio shows 3 times a day. Also, beautiful and inspiring programs in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to www.spiritist.com.
Eternal Bonds of Love is a poignant account of a young man's afterlife experiences after his death at age 20. Ricardo passed after an accidental fall at college on September 18, 2005. He started communicating through written messages to his father on July 2006. In July 2007, he communicated to his parents that they would be writing a book together to be finished and published in 1 year's time. And so they did. You will find in this unusual book Ricardo's story about his experiences, feelings, emotions, and spiritual development in the first 2 years after his untimely and unexpected passing. He shares his stages of evolution, his new life changes in his body and habits, and the people he encounters along the way. Through his verses, one is carried away to another reality where love, compassion, understanding, and spiritual growth are the dominant features and goals of those living life after death. Eternal Bonds of Love is comforting, hopeful, and inspiring, and teaches us that true love has no boundaries, no limits, that time and space are illusions, and that love binds us together eternally wherever we are. Purchase this book by visiting the SSB online bookstore at www.ssbaltimore.org. And now we return to our program.
Dear listener, let us say yes to life. We are here reincarnated because our biological parents put their strengths together and allowed us to live. No matter how hard their relationship was, no matter how difficult our relationship with them was, we are here living. And as Joana de Angeli says through Divaldo Franco, one thing is for sure, no matter how much we give back to our parents, we'll never be able to pay them back for the gift of life we were given. So in that regard, dear listener, at the very end of this program, we're going to dedicate a special prayer to all parents. No matter how difficult it was, no matter if they abandoned us, we surely have a debt with them because they gave us life. Even if they were not caring and loving, still our life was given. And we say life in the biological sense of the word because we know as spirits, God created us. So right here now, we're going to kickstart with one of the questions of the listeners. Is parenthood a mission? Kardec, actually, in the Spirit's book, question 582, asked the very, very question. Can parenthood be considered a mission? Let us listen to the answer that the illuminated spirits brought to us. It is, without a doubt, a mission, and at the same time, a very great duty that involves parents more than they might think concerning their responsibility for the future. God has placed children under the care of their parents so that they may guide them on the path of the good, and has facilitated their task by giving children a frail and delicate organization that renders them accessible to all sorts of impressions. However, there are those who are more concerned with training the trees in their orchards and making them produce fine fruits than with training the character of their children. If their children fail due to their neglect, they will be held accountable, and the sufferings of their children will come back to them in a future life because they did not do what was incumbent on them for their children's advancement on the path of the good. Dear listener, here in this short answer, the spirits are telling us much. They are telling us that we are in charge of educating our kids. It's amazing that we meet many parents today who think that their children are so evolved that their only task is to learn from their children and they don't have to do anything else. That is really not right. Because if they are given a frail body, it means that there is something for us to do there. And later in the program, since it's one of the expertise in our professional life, we're going to bring to you the neuroscience of prenatal life to tell how much parents are responsible for what's happening to this new life from prenatal moments. And we cannot overlook what's happening in prenatal life because it's going to be fundamental to what's going to happen next. Just to tease us a little bit, a recent Harvard study has showed that it is in prenatal life that we can control obesity. We wonder how so, right? So something really to think about. And later on, we're going to unfold to you many interesting and fascinating aspects of the neuroscience of prenatal life, just so we confirm that what the spirits told Kardec in 1857 was really at the vanguard of humanity's progress, because they already knew that if the body is frail, is still in development, there is a psychological, spiritual reason as well for that to be so. And this is when parenthood becomes a mission. Right now, there is a question of the listeners regarding when, precisely, when life begins in the womb. It may sound a controversial question, but reasoning solves all problems. Because when reason takes place, all doubts, all mysticism goes away. Actually, Spiritism explains to us that life begins at conception. At that very first cell, there is a spirit connected to the cell. If you read the book Genesis by Allan Kardec, you get to know more about the introductory aspects of that idea. But you can read the book Missionaries of the Light by André Luiz through the illuminated hands of the medium Chico Xavier. In its third chapter, there is a whole explanation about the reincarnatory process. Even before the first cell is formed at conception, the spirit that was previously assigned by higher entities to reincarnate is already around the parents, and it's actually the mind of that reincarnating spirit that is going to magnetically attract the gene pool of the mother and the father to the first cell at conception. Read the book Missionaries of the Light by André Luiz through the hands of Chico Xavier. You can buy it at odysseyaofamerica.com and read this phenomenal book that is certainly illuminating our minds. So we cannot tell that parents are responsible for what's happening genetically to that spirit. If the spirit was born with any form of infirmity or disability, if it's not created by the parents' carelessness in this life, the spirit itself attracted the body that he or she needs to use in this life. We don't have the body that we deserve, but we have the body that we need. Let us repeat this. The body that we have is not one that we deserve, is one that we need. Whether it is ugly or beautiful, it is a task in life. Whether it is filled with a gene pool that is going to promote the use of intelligence and high IQ or not, it is the body that we need to multiply the talents that we have as spirits. So parents should not be blamed for that, and they shouldn't feel guilty either. We know many cases of people who gave birth to children who had disabilities or even developed later on degenerative diseases. And it's very common that these parents, they sometimes even divorce because they feel so guilty for the situation of the child. They start blaming one another. And that's not healthy, because the spiritist perspective gives us a broader understanding of what's happening. It's an invitation for learning. It's an invitation to acceptance, to renunciation, to a more spiritual take in life. This is certainly something for us never to forget. And when we talk about parenthood, certainly another question that was brought to us throughout the year and a half that we've been through the programs, almost 2 years. We're going to complete 2 years at Kardec Radio this July. Listeners have been sending us questions about family planning. Family planning. There is another phenomenal book that you can acquire at the Spirit Society of Baltimore's website, After the Storm, in which Joana de Angelis, through Divaldo Franco, dedicates chapter 10 solely to family planning. And besides many things, she says, and we quote, human beings may and should plan the family they want to have, such as the number of children and the right time for parenthood. But they cannot skip away from their tasks to be fulfilled. How many parents today, they postpone parenting because they say, maybe we're not, because it's such a burden, it's so much, it's so expensive. These are materialistic views in life. Or they postpone it because they say, we're going to spend years traveling, just having fun, and then later the children will come. This is also a very mature way of seeing life, because of course we can give ourselves time to prepare ourselves and adjust. But just out of immaturity, really, it tells us all along that we don't know why we are reincarnated. Because when we know why we are reincarnated, we take our tasks. Of course, we know many couples decide not to have children because they feel they have a missionary call. Sometimes they have an organization to take care of, and they know if they have a child, it's going to be very difficult to fulfill that mission. So that is really a blessed way of seeing family planning, as long as we know that we are sharing the love and the care in our lives and our worries and concerns to care for others. Some parents cannot have children at all. They try many times and they can't. You may be asking, why? Why does this happen? In the book Action and Reaction by André Luiz, through Chico Xavier, and you can buy it at ediseiofamerica.com, you're going to find a very information on different types of miscarriage and abortion. There we'll get to know that sometimes deep inside the mind of the mother, she says she wants to have kids, but deep inside she is afraid. Or deep inside the father's mind, there is a strangeness between the spirit that is to be reincarnated and the father, and that energy, that vibration that unconsciously is being sent by the father is pushing away that life. So they conceive the child, and then soon after there is a miscarriage. Why? Because there are unconscious elements that only Spiritism explains. And André Luiz will say further down in chapters in this book, Action and Reaction, about the spiritual reasons behind miscarriages. We then conclude, before we plan to have a child, we need to pray and ask, why do I want to have a child? Is it because everybody does have one, then I should have one? Because that's probably, and we know, it's not the right reason for having a child. Or is it because it becomes a certificate of maturity? There are many people who are very mature, they don't have children. Let's look at our guiding model, Jesus. He was not a parent per se. Of course, he's a caring brother to all of us, but he was not a parent in that life, and he actually fulfilled all the laws of God. So being a parent does not complement us in itself unless there is a reason for us to do so. Is it because, as many people in this world, they say, I want to have kids because, when I grow older, I want somebody to take care of me. And there are, especially in Eastern societies or in some Latin American cultures, that mentality, which is so twisted because it's selfish. So you have a child expecting that the child is going to be bound to your expectation. That's selfish. That's not the best spiritual reason why we should have children at all. Our children are not ours. They're God's. So we need to educate them for God, not for us. Because if later they want to travel and go to another planet, they need to do what they need to do. So what if some people have children because they think, I heard this. I tell you, I heard people telling me, I'm going to have children because, they may be a great basketball player. They're going to go to NBA and then we're going to be rich and famous. Or some parents have children because, it's likely they're going to have a beautiful kid and the child's going to be a top model. They're going to be rich and famous. That's what we call using our children for our selfish motives. Really, this is not something that is going to pertain to our spiritual reasons. So we're just brainstorming here on the reasons why when we do family planning, according to the teachings here, children, Joana de Angeli says, chapter 10, the book After the Storm, through the hands of the phenomenal medium, Divaldo Franco. You can buy it at the SSB bookstore, ssbaltimore.com. Children, however, are not the product of mere chance, resulting from random events in life. They come according to pledges accepted before reincarnation by both future parents in order to build the family needed for everyone's progress. Wow. So this tells us that first and foremost, parents are the ones that take responsibility for it. They actually are the ones who request it. If you go to the book And Life Goes On by André Luiz, and now it's already a movie, and you can buy it at Amazon.com. It's And Life Goes On, both the book and the movie, talks about precisely how it happens. Parents are the first ones to request the opportunity of giving birth and taking care of that soul. Of course, as Dream Master is sharing here with us, yes, you have 2 children and you didn't plan here consciously, but certainly according to what the spirits say, in the spiritual realm, you certainly chose it. And the spirits, sometimes, they can choose us. Not all the time, but sometimes, because some are not mature yet, spiritually speaking, to choose. It's like a child going to school. They don't know. Can you tell? They're not mature enough to say, I'm going to this school or that school. But when you are at college level, you're more mature to choose which school you're going to take. Spiritually speaking, if we are mature enough, we may request where we're going to be reborn. But this is not out of a whim. No. The spirits carefully plan the whole reincarnation of each and family member of our lives. And while we're speaking here now, they are planning our future reincarnations. Go read the book And Life Goes On, and you'll be amazed about how this planning happens. It's beyond just the parents and the child. There are superior spirits, higher minds, in charge of the whole planning of a whole family. That's why we say, before you have a child, pray. Take your partner, say a prayer. The best way to go is always to plan it. If you didn't plan, that is fine. That is not a problem at all. But planning is always the best way to go. And as Joana de Angeli says, parents have the choice to postpone receiving the spirits with whom they had previous links. They can even totally refuse. Their reincarnation through them. But she says, how foolish an act this would be. For the supreme laws of life will see to it that the rejected ones knock at the door of their debtors and creditors under different and possibly very painful circumstances. Add to this the complication caused by the irresponsibility of a couple who would have acted in open disregard of the divine laws. In that regard, one thing is for sure. Sometimes the very children that we don't want to be born in our lives, they will come another way, sometimes as a niece, nephew, cousin, or as a coworker. Sometimes, the difference between coworkers is so big, like 20, 40 years apart. So maybe they will come and they will be the ones that seem to be begging for our affection, begging for our attention, and we don't know why. So it's quite interesting. Joana de Angelis, in this phenomenal chapter, she says at the very end, before any final decisions are made in regards to contraception, think about the teachings, pray, meditate. God provides everything. She's saying this because many people talk about financial expenditures since you become a parent. That is true, but it's not an excuse. It's a materialistic view on life. Of course, we should plan, but never discard the possibility. It's the Spiritist view on family planning. And she says at the very end, keep these moral codes etched in your spirit and plan your family with confidence, surrendering your affairs to God and trusting in all things good, for ultimately everything proceeds from God, the watchful Father of all of us. This is how Joana de Angelis, the illuminated mind, brings to us her take on family planning. We're going to give a short break, but when we come back, we have the Spiritist and also the neuroscientific view on prenatal life. Stay there, and if you have comments and questions, we are right here at Kardec Radio.
We will return to our program after these messages.
A new masterpiece has just been released by EDI-CEI of America, Memoirs of a Suicide by Yvonne Pereira, a phenomenal book about what happens to suicides in the afterlife. Truly instructive, it brings greater hope that no one really dies or spends eternity in damnation. A true account of the mercy and providence of God. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Come for the beautiful event sponsored by the British Union of the Spiritist Societies. It is the second British Spiritist Congress on May 11th and 12th at the Quakers Friends House in London, United Kingdom. For more information, please go to www.buss.org.uk.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Are you seeking a way to tap into more spiritual you? Try meditation. As the Spirit Joana de Angelis says, meditation becomes an effective way to discipline the will. In the meditative state, you calm down your emotions and clarify your discernment, harmonizing your feelings. Take a listen to a clip from the CD entitled Health by Divaldo Franco and Joana de Angelis.
So say this: I am life, and a triumphant life. Say it again, and once again.
I am happiness in life. Repeat it. I am fulfilled, and so I shall remain. Look at yourself. You are irradiating His light. Again, look at yourself. You are irradiating His light. Breathe it. Hold it. Breathe out. Say to yourself, nothing of a disturbing nature deserves my attention.
If you want to listen to more, you can purchase your own copy online at www.ssbaltimore.org/bookstore.
And now we return to our program.
Dear listener, we're rejoicing about this very program. It's about saying yes to life. Many listeners have been asking us to address issues regarding reincarnation, pregnancy, parenthood, family planning, and here we are, dedicating the whole program to this very thing. As we said before you plan on having a child, pray. And don't use your child to complete yourself, because that completeness doesn't happen. We know many parents who went that way, had their children. When they became teenagers, they started cursing their children, saying they were not what they expected. We cannot use our children. Parenthood cannot start with expectations on what our children will give to us. It's on us what we're going to give to our children. Now, we are going to clarify the reasons why childhood is a moment for learning, and it begins in prenatal life. When Allan Kardec asked this question, why is childhood necessary? And they answered, because it's a way for the spirit to learn new things. These and many other teachings Allan Kardec brings in the Spirit's Book, which is a phenomenal basic foundation. As the mentor Joseph says, the Spirit's Book is like the constitution of the soul. It's a universal constitution. Many people say, we're not born with a manual. Your child is actually born with a manual, because the Spirit's Book is like a manual. It's a manual for us to understand ourselves and our children. We just need to read it. It's just a matter of studying it and going through it. Not only the Spirit's Book, but also when we talk about children's education, prenatal life, and so on and so forth, postnatal life. We also have a special chapter in the Gospel According to Spiritism, chapter 14, especially item 9. It's about the Spiritist take on education. As the Spirit St. Augustine says, from childhood, children manifest the good or the evil instincts they have brought from their previous existence, and it is necessary that we apply ourselves to studying them. And sincerely, mothers who are very attentive to their children, they can foresee the life that is coming along in their belly, in their womb. They can, because the interaction between mother and the child is so strong. Spiritually speaking, the spiritual body of the mother is fully connected to the spiritual body of the child, and the perceptions of one make the other feel the same, and vice versa. So we can, as the spirits say, the mother becomes almost like a medium of the child. The mother, if she pays attention, she can tell the tendencies of that soul right there in the belly. You can tell. If you talk to mothers, and studies by psychology have been pointing out that it's very possible to understand the tendencies, the taste, the desires, the wishes of that soul that is coming along. And neuroscience tells much more. Neuroscience, which is one of our specialties, which is the neuroscience of prenatal and postnatal life, it talks about what they say critical periods in development. What is happening to the brain of your baby in your womb? It's developing. Though the brain never stops developing itself, our brains are continually reshaping themselves to meet the demands of our everyday life, even throughout adulthood. There is no day in which the brain is fully developed and you're not going to learn anything anymore. Neuroscience nowadays knows fully and is fully aware that our learning experience depends on our willingness to learn, because the physical body is open to the learning experience. Neuroscientists, though they don't understand fully the biological basis for these critical periods, we know that during prenatal life, there is a critical period, as much as in the first 7 years of life, in which it's going to depend on what we expose our baby and our child to. To tell you one of the things, for example, during the critical period, a child's experience will determine if those synapses in the brain will stay there or they will die out, prune, as we say in neuroscience. When the baby is in the womb, the potential of many synapses is fully there. It's not that it will be created. It's already there. It's a matter of exposing our baby to certain experiences. And in prenatal life, that's when it starts happening. We say that, for example, nowadays, our brain is activity dependent. So if you expose that being to that experience, it's going to stick, because the brain is like a glue. It sticks. It's like a sponge. Okay? Not only when they are born, when they are in the womb. There are many studies already showing if you expose the baby in the womb to classical music, when they are born, they will very likely like classical music. If you expose them to other types of music, they will most likely like those musics, because they are already prepared. Their neurocircuitry is prepared to absorb that experience, because you prepare them for it. So the responsibility of parents is immense, as Kardec said in Question and Answer 582, because the body is ready to absorb new experiences and prepare its network for it. In that regard, dear listener, we need to take courses for parents. Chico Xavier himself talks about the importance of having a spiritual course, spiritist course for parents. And that's what we do, telling our baby every day, talking about God. Because you may be asking, what is the main goal of parenting? St. Augustine, chapter 14, item 9 of the Gospel According to Spiritism says, the task of parents is to lead that spirit to God, period. That's why he says the task is not as difficult as you might think, however. How many parents nowadays say, oh my gosh, it's such a hard job? Yes, because when we are selfish, we don't want to take care of anybody else. But when we do, it becomes second nature, because we are giving. And that's all we need to do. Give. And lead our children to God. So it can't be that hard. It can't be that hard. It becomes hard when we overlook the little and important details. So we have parents whom later, in childhood, in adolescence, they start complaining, oh my gosh, but my child wasn't like this. You didn't pay attention, because if you did, you would had been on top of it. That's why Spiritism is here, to give a hand to parents and say, this is the way. If you want to have a good recipe on how to take care of your child, just read of everything we have in Spiritism, item 9 of chapter 14, the Gospel According to Spiritism. The Spirit, St. Augustine, tells the whole methodology on how to take care of your children. But we need to be courageous. Because, for example, if I observe that my baby in the womb is a little bit like too picky, because you feel it. As a mother, you feel it, like picky. You want to eat something, the child, it's almost like you can hear the voice telling you, like, don't want to eat this. What do? We take it, if it's a good thing for your health, you teach the child, telling, look, it's important for us to eat this. You're going to appreciate it. Sometimes the Spirit rejects the presence of people around. And sometimes it can be the very presence of the father or grandparents, etc. So we need to start educating that Spirit, saying, look, we need to love and appreciate and talk to this baby, to this new understanding and acceptance. The same happens after they are born. If we let them do only what they want, we're failing, because they are supposed to leave this new reincarnation better, more refined, more disciplined, more spiritualized than when they were reborn. In that regard, St. Augustine tells you need to be almost like a scientist of our children. Observe their behaviors. Teach them to tame their bad tendencies. There is no other way. Of course, this is the reason why. We will unfold a new understanding about it when it begins with us. And that's one of the reasons why when we talk about education, prenatal, postnatal life, it's imperative that we address these issues by bringing God at home. Meaning, praying together, the parents, if the mother is alone, praying, and reading good books to the children, even if the child is in the womb, because the body is small, but the spirit is millennial. No wonder Kardec asked this question, can a spirit of our reincarnating child be more evolved than us? And the Spirit said, of course, sometimes much more evolved, but that doesn't mean we're not going to fulfill our tasks. Because when we have that responsibility of being parents of a more evolved child, we really need to be more diligent, because the responsibility just mounts. And you may be asking, what if we do our best and our children fail? They don't fulfill. If you go to these questions that we're just reading in the Spirit's book, question 583, okay, you will see that Kardec asked this very question. What if we do our best and still our children don't, they are not tailored to what we're teaching them? Well, the answer of the Spirit is fascinating. The very question, in Kardec's own words, is, if a child goes astray, in spite of the care of the parents, are they still responsible? The answer, no. But the more the child is disposed towards evil, the heavier their task, and the greater will be their merit if they manage to divert the child away from the path of evil. And then Kardec asks another question. If a child becomes a good adult, despite the negligence or bad examples of the parents, do the parents receive any benefit from it? And the answer is simply, God is just. It's quite interesting. Just meaning, if they did nothing, there's no merit. So, it is a mission. Sometimes we pay more attention and prepare so much to get so many degrees, but when we become parents, we just feel like it's of less importance, and it's actually more important than anything else. Because we are, as Leon Denis says in the book, Here and Hereafter, he says in a subtitle chapter, education. When it is through education that we change society. And we can begin it right there in the womb, prenatal life. That's where it begins. So we would advise you, if possible, go to a Spiritist center and ask about prenatal education. Most likely they will tell you. They have somebody who is an expert in the field and will tell you how to relate to the spirit of your child from the very moment that the child is in the womb. And neuroscience today vouches for it, because you're investing in the education from even before the child is born. For example, nutrition affects the developing brain. So what the mother is ingesting is going to affect the child. Of course, some children are malnourished because the mothers didn't eat well. You may be eating potato chips every day and maybe you don't look malnourished, but actually in regards to nutrients, you may well be malnourished and your child will be as well, deprived of the needed proteins, of the needed elements in this life. The brains are small. They become even smaller when they are malnourished, and it's going to affect their development, their language. And you need to be careful nowadays, dear listener, when eating at the gestational level. Be careful, because much of the food we have out there contains so many elements to preserve the food, etc., that it can affect the neurotransmission, the growth of the brain, and no wonder later our children will become hyperactive, etc., because the food we are eating is changing their brain development. So ideally, eat organic. Oh, it's more expensive, but it's better to eat chicken that is organic than not, because otherwise you're going to ingest a lot of toxins from the hormones they give to chicken. Ideally, reduce red meat. Red meat, according to the latest study by Harvard University, tells us that the more meat you eat, the less years you're going to live in this life. There are so many toxins that are produced when you break down meat in your body. It can affect your pregnancy as well. So balance. We're talking about balance. Eating more vegetables, more fruits, organic, of course, because of the toxins. Nanoliter quantities of toxins, of these products they use to send the bugs away from their farms, are going to create a lot of impediments for the developing brain, and your brain as well. We know studies from experts at the University of Maryland telling us quite clearly that nanoliter quantities of these toxins that they are using in farming can induce Alzheimer. So organic is the ultimate nourishment for the body. And this is only for the body. We're talking about a multidimensional approach to prenatal development. The physical body with proper hygiene, with proper food, proper rest, proper exercise, the importance of exercising at least 30 minutes a day during gestation, and meditation. And now we're talking about the psychological, spiritual development. As much as it's important to watch out the food we eat that is going to affect the development of that reincarnating being, we are also nourishing the soul. So talk to your baby in the womb. I remember once, many years ago, because this is one of my expertise in science, the neuroscience of postnatal, prenatal life, I remember a mother who approached me, and she was like 7 months, and she started telling me, "Oh, Vanessa, you know what happens? I sometimes question if I should really be pregnant, etc." It's understandable the conflicts we may feel, but the baby knows what we're feeling. Should we be ashamed? No. We should be kind to ourselves. We're not perfect. So these questions, they pop up in our minds. But we should address them, sometimes with extra help. So use your hands and caress your belly. Tell your baby everything's fine, and we are here to grow together. You and the father, you and the partner are here to learn and grow in this process of Disney reincarnation. Pray. If your anxiety is growing, escalating, sit down, pray, go to the Spiritist Center. If you go to a church, go to your church and pray. If you need a therapist to calm yourself down regarding your anxiety, find a good therapist. Find a support group for you amongst other pregnant women, and have a good coordinator, facilitator that will bring you greater calmness, knowing that you are co-creating with God. And that's when everything becomes very soothing. Be diligent, but remember, only God controls it. We're going to give a short break. When we come back, we have more about the neuroscience of prenatal life, and then finally, we're going to discuss what is most important, abortion.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Known as one of the most scientific books by Allan Kardec, The Genesis dives deeper into the origins of our planet to the advent of the new generations to come. Purchase your copy today, online or via your ebook reader. Go to www.ediceiofamerica.com today.
The United States Spiritist Council invites you to the 7th U.S. Spiritist Symposium to happen on April 20th in Fort Worth, Texas. The theme of the year is Life in the Spiritual World, the works of Andrea Lewis. More information at www.spiritistsymposium.org.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
Now in English, the book Action and Reaction by the Spirit Andrea Louise, psychographed by Chico Xavier. Buy your copy online or via your ebook reader. Go to www.ediceiofamerica.com today.
And now we return to our program.
Dear listener, we're talking about saying yes to life, and we shall say yes because we are here and we're appreciating our own lives. There is so much importance to knowing about prenatal life, gestation, and knowing about the spiritual consequences of the lack of education or abortion. Right now, we're going to first thank all the listeners who are here at the Blog Talk Radio chat room. Ametista, Enrique Lisboa, Karina Menezes, and Dream Master for their great comments and take. We are going to go back and rewind some of the elements here, which are so important. We are happy to hear that Dream Master is appreciative of how his children are growing, and these are good news for us too, because the growth of your kids is also a plus for all of us in society. So thank you for bringing healthy kids to our world. Also, Ametista has been asking us about the need. Is there a connection with the child's spirit and food cravings? Okay, 1 second, because we just missed it. Is there a connection? Okay, sorry. Food cravings. Should we just allow it to go through or refrain, etc.? We would say, if the food craving is something that is healthy, go for it. Like, oh my gosh, I want to eat a lot of broccoli. Yeah, go ahead, eat broccoli because that's healthy. But if it's saying, let's eat a box of chocolate, I'm not sure that this will really the best way to go. And as you say, we should control the odd cravings, especially the ones that are not going to add to our health and the baby's health. Because what happens is this: each thing that we eat is going to be broken down into our digestive system, and later, where is it going to go? To the bloodstream. And then it's going to irrigate our brain. So when it gets to our nervous system, these molecules that we added to our physical body are going to communicate with the nerve system, telling, open more receptors. And there you go, open more receptors. And that's when cravings become addictions. And it's a problem because the body works for balance. So when we have an imbalance, it's not the body's problem, it's our problem, because the body is just responding to what we're giving to it. And imagine if we are creating the brain of our kids predisposition to obesity, predisposition to diabetes because of our cravings. So we should be very vigilant. We're not saying like, oh, if you want to eat chocolate, don't eat it. Eat, but eat with moderation. Moderation is the word. If you need to drink alcohol, no, not even in moderation. It's a no for pregnancy. No, it's a no for pregnancy. Not even a drop of alcohol will be beneficial. Alcohol dehydrates cells, and this will be toxic to you and to the baby. Smoking, no, not at all. Recreational drugs, not at all. Which we would actually rephrase. Recreational drugs actually should be called suicidal drugs, because this is a way of committing suicide. Because even if you don't die all of a sudden in an overdose, little by little, you're dying. You're smoking pot or snorting cocaine, etc. It's always a no. But also eating too much can be detrimental to you and the baby. So physically speaking, we need to pay close attention and remember that the brain will be responding to everything you're giving to your child. The brain of your kid is growing very fast, and there is a process of what we call myelination that is going to expedite the very communication between cells, and that's the importance of being very, very careful. I would just read through excerpts so we understand more about the maturity of the brain, okay? Generally speaking, the central nervous system matures in a sequence from tail to head. In just the 5th week after conception, the first synapses begin forming in a fetus spinal cord. By the 6th week, a month and a half, these early neural connections allow the first fetal movements, and many people think there's no life there and commit abortion. It's such a nonsense. They really don't know what they are doing. And then researchers can detect these spontaneous movements through ultrasound imaging. Many other movements soon follow. Of the limbs around 8 weeks, fingers around 10 weeks, as well as some surprising coordinated actions like hiccuping, stretching, yawning, sucking, swallowing, grasping, and sub-sucking. By the end of the first trimester, a fetus movement is remarkably rich, even though most pregnant women can feel nothing. And most women sense the first fetal movements around 18 weeks of pregnancy. Some will feel earlier. And it's all about the awareness of the mother towards the womb and the life. In the second trimester, it marks the onset of other critical reflexes, such as breathing movements, coordinated sucking, and swallowing reflexes. So there we're going to see little by little the life that is sprouting in the very womb. In the brain, there's so much life happening that we can tell. Only Spiritism explains the beauty of what's happening on the behind the scenes. Who is coordinating all the sprouting, the whole sprouting of that new life in the womb? The spirit that is reincarnating. Without that mental coordination of the spirit, the physical body would not grow, would not expand. That's the reason why right now we ask you, dear listener, to join forces with us, because now we're going to address a most critical topic when we say about reincarnation in a new body. We're going to talk about abortion. I know it's difficult. If you're listening to us, you've been through this, please do not take any of our comments as judgment. Our intention is not to judge you. Our intention is not to push you away and make you feel guiltier. No. Feel this as an opportunity for you to start over in your life. Because God grants us always a new beginning every day. But let us clarify, what is the Spiritist take on abortion? Unfortunately, it is considered a crime. And we say unfortunately because we know so many people do it out of, carelessness. They don't even know what they're doing. And if we tell them it's a crime, they're going to say, but I didn't mean it. We know you didn't mean it, but it's important for you to know that there is life there from day zero. So you can't. The body is yours, Mom, but that body inside of you is not yours. You are taking care of it, but it's not yours. You are responsible for bearing it, but it's not yours. You cannot cut their life short. And you, dear Father, if you don't want that life, you may abandon that kid, but you cannot force your wife, your partner, to commit abortion, because that life is not yours. So for both parents, it's a no-no to make abortion. I know it's difficult, but let us talk through the process here with caring and loving. I know we all together, when we talk about it, let us visualize a beautiful flower soothing our hearts, so everyone who is listening to us receive this information as an invitation to learning. No judgment, just understanding the loss of life. There are so many things we do today, dear listener, that we're not aware that before God's laws, it is a crime. But probably in 100 years, we're going to look back and think, oh my God, I can't believe I've done that. And then we realize, because we're more mature, it was a mistake. How many things we did in previous lives, we did out of ignorance, and now we know it's a crime. At caveman time, it was okay for you to kill somebody who was coming to steal your food. Today, if you do that, you go to jail. So, sincerely, it's all about the little process of life. And as Karina Menezes is bringing to us, there's some explanation about abortion also in the book Memoirs of Suicide. Thank you, Karina, and you're right. This book is phenomenal and is already available at ediceiofamerica.com, ediceiofamerica.com. Please, dear listener, go there because this book is phenomenal and brings new light to it. But there is another book you also can acquire at the Spiritual Society of Baltimore's website, After the Storm, in which Joana de Angelis dedicates chapter 12 to abortion. And we're going to read to you excerpts of this. Are you ready? Let us be ready. Let us listen as if we're listening to a master, to a teacher who is teaching us about the ins and outs of abortion. Let us listen with an open heart. Nothing can justify abortion. An abominable crime, criminal abortion, is a cowardly means used by weaker spirits to flee responsibility, incurring a grave and not easily erasable state of guilt. Nevertheless, some countries have legalized all cases of abortion with and without a fair reason, and we consider fair reason all those cases of therapeutic abortion medically approved to save the mother's life. This is an important take that she makes here. If the mother's life is at risk, there is no other way. Kardec asked this question in 1857 to the spirits. What should we do if the mother's life is at risk? Well, save the life that already exists. It's hard. It's probably one of the hardest things that may happen to a mother when she has to decide to cut short the life of a wanted child in her womb. But there is no other way. Still, we know of many cases in which the mother, she doesn't care and she feels like probably that is not the way to go, and she insists and she goes all the way until full term and the baby is born safe and sound. This is about the mass of faith and also the mass of that inner voice. But let us trust medicine, because usually medicine knows quite well, especially nowadays. But besides the therapeutic abortion, sincerely, as the spirits say, it's a no-no. Senseless advocates, says Joana de Angelis, of criminal abortion come up with the allegation that in the first few months there is no existence. Yet they fail to recognize that human life in the process of development is deserving of high respect. With the passing of days, the fetus will be transformed into a man or woman who deserves the opportunity of a bodily life by divine decree. No one has the authority of cutting short the phenomenon of life without incurring in painful debt from which will not be absolved without paying a heavy price. No process of reincarnation happens at random, not even those that happen as a consequence of rape. It's hard to hear this, but it is true. The child that is there being conceived has nothing to be blamed for the criminal action of those who underwent rape and committed it. It's hard, but this is a spiritual take, dear listener. We need to grow mature to absorb these teachings because they are about the laws of life. Do you like gravity? Probably not, right? Because you grow older and everything starts sagging. But whether we like gravity or not, we need to understand it and to work around it. Otherwise, if we stand up on a high table and we don't watch out, we're going to fall. So whether we like the law of life or not, we need to comply for our own benefit. Because if we don't, we'll suffer even more. It's better and it's really commendable those women who preferred to keep their baby in spite of the father's rejection. They were rejected by the father. The father said, it's either me or the child, and the mother commendably said, I will prefer this child. That is commendable because that mother is taking responsibility. And even though she hasn't planned or he hasn't planned consciously, unconsciously in the spirit, we did accept the responsibility. Karina Menezes is here asking us, what happens after someone commits an abortion and they choose later to have a child? If they regret it and ask for forgiveness. Good point, Karina. And that's what we're walking towards, the spiritual solutions to it. One other listener actually has already sent us this question about being repentant of it. What do we do? If you can have a kid, well, ask for the opportunity to have a child. If God grants us the opportunity, the child is going to come. Maybe not the very spirit that was going through abortion, but another or the same. In the Medical Spiritists Association, one of its members is a therapist, a regression therapist, and she did a whole research in which one of the cases, the man who went through regression process observed that his current asthma is a byproduct of his mother's abortion in their very life. He was the very spirit that his mother aborted in that life, and later he reincarnated. And you see, he reincarnates with asthma. It's his problem, but it's the mother's, care that is going to really operate upon it. So we see here action and reaction. And of course, if you ask the spirits who are undergoing the process of abortion, they don't deserve to go through it. But there is a reason also why they may go through it. Go to the book And Life Goes On. There is a case about, and that case is not an abortion per se, but it's a miscarriage. The spirit Evelina, the woman who is incarnated, Evelina, she feels guilty because she was having she was dating two men at the same time. And when she was repentant of it, it was too late. She thought that one of them committed suicide because she was basically dating another man simultaneously, cheating on him. And later on, she got married to the second man and wanted to have a kid. And the spirit, says André Luiz, the high spirits, very high spirits, the guardian angels of Evelina and the family, planned that she would have an unsuccessful reincarnation, gestation. They put together there a spirit that was a former suicide, and there was a miscarriage. Through that, she would come to terms with her unconscious guilt towards the possible suicide of one of her dates, and at the same time, she would be helping unconsciously this spirit of a former suicide go through that frustration attempt to be reborn, so the spirit of that former suicide through that miscarriage would learn to appreciate the value of life. Man, I know it is such a complex process, right? It is such a complex process, but one thing is for sure, it's worth repenting. Allan Kardec, in the book Heaven and Hell, which is fascinating, talks about the 3-step ladder when we find out something is wrong, we did something wrong. He says, the first step is repent. Repentance is about awareness that what we did is wrong. 2, it's not enough to repent. We need to be open to expiate. In Spiritism, this is a technical term that would say we need to be ready to go through the suffering of that repentance. It's natural. When we realize that we did something wrong, we suffer, and that's normal. And we may undergo even similar process to really know that that is a no-no. But that's not enough. Suffering for what we've done wrong is not enough. We need to walk a third and final step, which is reparation. And this, Karina, is exactly what you're talking about. Repent for an abortion. If you still can conceive a child, ask for an opportunity and then have a child. If you cannot conceive a child any longer, or if you are a father who asked the mother to commit abortion or abandon a kid, then it's your opportunity to open your arms to the universal family and take care of orphans, abandoned children, and others who are in need. Even though they are not your biological children, you can make it up by loving. And that's why Henrique Lisboa kindly sharing here with us a beautiful teaching in chapter Peter 1, verse Chapter 4, verse 8, above all, love each other deeply because love covers a multitude of wrongdoings. For sure, This is how it works. If we find out there is something wrong, all we have to do is to walk that 3-step ladder: repentance, expiation, and then reparation. As Ametista is reminding us here, there's a great Brazilian movie, but there is caption in English, The Movie of the Spirits. You can buy it at Amazon.com, O Filme dos Espíritos, or The Movie of the Spirits. If you need the names here, just write to Kardec Radio, and we'll send to you the link so you can buy phenomenal books. Let us go through a little bit more on Joana de Angelis' takes on abortion, just so we wrap it up. A spirit whose return to earth was blocked will try again. A re-encounter will take place in the future between the mother-to-be and the one whom she tried to avoid. The previous commitments between them, which require adjustment without delay, will magnetically attract each other. If there is lack of love, a process of mental illness will take place, followed by other disorders of a complex nature and difficult diagnosis. Thus, we must favor life, no matter under what aspect it manifests itself. Consider the liberating door of reincarnation. Advance to higher levels of spiritual progress by offering the opportunity to spirits who seek your help and trust in God. The author of creation that watches over the birds of the air and the flowers of the fields will also watch over you, who are more valuable than they are, as Jesus said. You're not forsaken or deprived of divine assistance. There is no excuse whatsoever for a person who practices abortion, notwithstanding the moral chaos that is sweeping the earth today. Every child is trusted to parents who should love them and prize their sacred opportunity to help the progress of them. In due time, this being should be ready to return to the Celestial Father. The criminal act of abortion should not become a stumbling block in your spiritual progress. It should be avoided even when it results in difficulties and afflictions. Every spiritual ascension demands a sacrificial task, but at the summit's height, there are promises of peace and beauty as a compensation for all your struggles. You'll be honored with peace after liberating your conscience from debts and guilt. To kill, never. Dear listener, let us remember the basic commandments of life. If you read the book, which is yet to be in English, but it's already in Portuguese, O Consolador by Emmanuel, there is a very question about the foundation of God's laws in life, and it's all in the 10 Commandments brought in by Moses. There you're going to find that when it says, do not kill, it means do not kill also the child in your womb. Eating healthy, thinking well, behaving well, taking care of your emotions. Also the father or the partner should also partake in this whole process. Praying, meditating, teaching the spirit all the more about spirituality, about spiritism, about religion is essential to fulfill the mission of a parent. Dear listener, I know there would be much more for us to learn here with this program, but this is just a lightly brush on the topic. Right now, we're going to open for the segments that our dear team prepared regarding this topic and much more. Let us listen, but don't go away because we're still here live. If you have a question or a comment, please either call at 858-769-4705 or send an email or a message through Facebook or even here at the chat room of Kardec Radio. We're here to listen to you, nourish your soul, and bringing opportunities for new illumination. Right now, the segments by Dr. Magalhães, Spiritism in Your Life, about parenting, followed by Bernadette Leal's parenting tips on how to teach your children to experience life changes.
Hello, dear Kardec Radio listener. This is Marco Magalhães, and welcome to the segment Spiritism in Your Life. Today we're going to bring to you some of the Spiritist ideas on parenthood and the importance of it, not only for our moral progress, but for moral progress of so many spirits incarnating on earth. And we're going to start by going through the Spirits book, question 582, where Allan Kardec asks the spirits, can parenthood be considered a mission? And the spirits answer, it is without any doubt a mission, and at the same time a very great duty, which involves parents more than they might think concerning their responsibility for the future. God has placed children under the care of their parents so that they may guide them on the path of goodness, and has facilitated their task by giving children a frail and delicate organization, which renders them accessible to all sorts of impressions. However, there are those who are more concerned with training the trees in their orchards and making them bring forth fine fruit than with training the character of their children. If their children fail due to their neglect, they will have to bear as a punishment the sufferings of their children, and will come back to them in a future life, because they did not do what was incumbent upon them for their children's advancement in the ways of morality. As you can see, the spirits are very clear when they say that it is a mission, it is a duty, there's a lot of responsibilities, but of course, there's a lot of goodness on it. There's a lot of blessings. The opportunity that we have to make changes and to help someone who is coming to this world in this new opportunity, and imagining the history behind that, of how many times we probably asked for that opportunity to help someone and be helped at the same time. In the next question, 583, Allan Kardec asked the spirits, if a child goes astray in spite of the care of the parents, are they still responsible? That's a very interesting question. The spirits answer, no, but the more the child is disposed towards evil, the heavier their task is, and the greater will be their merit if they manage to divert the child away from the path of evil. So as you can see, my dear listeners, our little children that are incarnating into this world are old spirits with a lot of history. Some of them have done a lot of mistakes in the past, and maybe they're not ready yet to completely overcome all their difficulties and turn into the path of good. But this is why we're here for, and this is why parenting is so important, because we have an amazing opportunity of contributing to the moral progress of all these spirits. And in many other instances where the spirits coming are highly evolved, we also have another major responsibility, keeping our homes a good place for them to establish their capabilities again and start doing their missions, because all of them have missions, not only us. To illustrate some of that, we'll go to chapter 5, item number 4, on the Gospel according to Spiritism. As it says, how many parents are unhappy with their children because they did not combat their bad inclinations right from the start? Whether from weakness or indifference, they allow the seeds of pride, selfishness, and foolish vanity to develop in them, withering their hearts. Afterward, much later, in reaping what they have sown, they are surprised and afflicted by their children's lack of respect and gratitude. And this, my friends, is happening all over the world, in many places, in many families right now. Just imagine the possibilities we have of making some good positive changes in all these kids' lives. But in order to do that, we have to start to control the seeds of selfishness and pride from day one, as early as we can, even before they're born, even when they're still in the womb of their mothers. It is important for parents to keep positive vibrations, thoughts, communicate with them, and use all the teachings from Spiritism to help this incarnating spirit. And when they're born, continue on that practice, explaining to them what they have to do. Not only saying no, because saying no doesn't help. They don't understand. Or avoiding using things like bargaining, which is so common nowadays because it can look effective if you look at it in a very brief moment in time. But has a terrible, catastrophic consequence in adulthood and for that spirit later on. Because if you bargain with a kid, they're going to learn to expect something back from everything they do in life. And that can have a very negative consequence in their characters. Another important thing we need to say is that parenting also has very positive effects on the parents. Many researchers have shown that parenting induces positive changes in the brain, neurotransmitters, in parents' behavior, decreasing addictions, and increased mental health. So keep in mind that it is always a positive thing. And we're going to finish today's segment with a passage from St. Augustine in the Gospel According to Spiritism, chapter 14. O Spiritists, you must understand humankind's grand role. You must understand that when you produce a body, the soul who incarnates in it has come from the spirit world in order to progress. Know your duties and put all your love in leading that soul to God. This is the mission that has been entrusted to you and for which you will receive recompense if you faithfully fulfill it. The care and education you give will help in its self-improvement and future well-being. Remember that God will ask every father and mother, what did you do for the children whom I entrusted into your care? Dear listeners, let us all take advantage of this incredible opportunity that God gives us to love truly from the bottom of our hearts, without any other conflicting feelings, loving our kids, practicing charity from deep inside our souls. Thank you all, and God bless us.
Welcome to our Yes, Youth Education in Spiritism with Kardec Radio. I am Bernadette Leal, and I'll be spending a few minutes with you, inspiring to bring spiritual awareness and spiritist teachings to our youth, parents, and educators. Today we will answer the following question. How can I help my child to adapt to changes? One great virtue that we can teach our children is about being flexible. Not in the sense of bending and stretching our body, but being able to bend ourselves when changes are needed by accepting and adapting to a new situation. We all have our routines. Things we do every day, and we probably have been doing them in the same way for a while. We feel very comfortable with our routine because it gives us a sense of control over our lives. And children feel the same. Yes, they like what is predictable. They want to know what they will be doing next, the food they will be eating, and where they are going. But life goes beyond our daily schedule and routine, and sometimes we just have to deal with what is unpredictable. Deep inside, we know the importance of flexibility in life, and we are able to recognize when someone around us is being radical and not flexible. But when we face a situation in which we need to change and adapt to something new, we may struggle. We can even easily come up with excuses and a logical explanation on why we will not change, so we can keep doing what we are doing. In fact, we are really good at sabotaging ourselves and our personal growth. We would rather stay in our comfort zone because changes force us to deal with our fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of not being in control. Consequently, we choose to continue in our regular routine. Staying in the same unhappy job, in a sad relationship, not exercising, and most importantly, we find excuses for not working on ourselves. We would be amazed on how much our brain can adapt to new situations. In fact, our brain is born to change. Yeah, even if we do the same things every day, our brain is still changing and adapting. Dear listeners, it is very helpful to have a positive attitude toward the life changes and develop the awareness on how important they are in our lives. Changes are a natural part of the human nature in the universe. Our body is a proof of it. We are not the same person physically, emotionally, and cognitively that we were 10 years ago, are we? Changing goes hand in hand with progress. One thing we can do to help our brain to adapt easier to changes is to practice doing different things every day. Try, for instance, to eat with your not dominant hand sometimes. Read different genre of books. Drive home using a different route. Brush your teeth in a different way. Have a different haircut once in a while. This can be a really fun activity to do with your child. It is essential for children to learn to adapt to changes and develop some coping skills. When something unpredictable happens, teach your child not to resist, but embrace it, having a positive attitude, and talking about how much we can learn from it. Children look up to their parents for guidance. Therefore, if a parent is freaking out and is stressed when something new or unexpected happens, they will act the same way. A better attitude is to help the child to deal with the new situation and show different options on how to handle it. For instance, if a child is planning to play outside and suddenly it starts to rain, give him some ideas of what he can do to play inside. It is also crucial to explain to children that things may not always go how they expect. In addition, acknowledge children's feelings and do not say that everything is perfect and just fine, because that is not how they feel at the moment. Children need to feel secure about a new situation. They want to be assured that things will be okay, so they won't feel any fear or anxiety or sadness about it. A variety of unexpected events can happen in a child's life, like change of school, moving, the loss of a loved one, an illness, divorce. And parents can make a huge difference on how children handle those moments in their lives. Also, if you know that a major change is coming on your child's way, start talking about it early and a little bit at a time, giving the child some time to think about it and adapt. Changes also provide a great opportunity to teach your child to connect with God through prayer, asking God to help and strength to deal with a new or difficult situation in their lives. Kardec Radio listeners, the Spiritist philosophy invites us to change every day, to look at ourselves, our negative tendencies, and improve. We change so we can evolve. If we are unhappy or something is not working in our lives, that is an invitation to change. Jesus did not say that it would be easier when he talked about choosing to walk through the narrow door. But later, we will realize the blessings that some changes and challenges bring into our lives and our spiritual growth. Chapter 5 of the Gospel According to Spiritism by Allan Kardec reminds us to be content with the trials and problems which God sends and accept it without murmuring, but with faith. As Maya Angelou said, if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. Thanks for listening to our Yes. And if you have any questions that would like us to answer in this segment, please email them to kardec@kardekradio.com.
Hello, dear Kardec Radio listeners, and welcome back to the Spiritist Moment. I am Kirsten DeMello, your host. Dear friends, we are coming towards an end of this fourth law, the law of preservation, that is located in Part 3 of the Spirit's book. We come towards the end of this chapter, and we wish just to sort of give a highlight, an overview, as the good noble spirits sort of end this particular chapter on a very interesting and introspective look into us, the immortal beings. Ultimately, they teach us throughout this particular law that, caring for ourselves, for our physical body, and for our emotional state is extremely important. And our overall well-being, God wishes for us to take care of our overall well-being as long as it is not at the expense of others. But they also bring this topic of the self-preservation instinct, that although we should take care of ourselves, and that instinct is within each and every being, regardless of their level of intelligence, yet we shouldn't go to the extreme where we mortify our body or we deprive ourselves of certain things, thinking that by depriving ourselves of certain things, imposing this suffering on our physical bodies, thinking that will help us to evolve. It's an erroneous idea. And it's something that the spirits come to bring to us so we can become more enlightened and more educated. And the spirits, in essence, they tell us in this particular chapter that if we wish to be happier, if we wish to evolve, to progress, they tell us in the answer to question 725 that it is by practicing, and we quote, the divine laws instead of violating them, that you can shake off the burden of your terrestrial matter. So it's by learning these laws, by learning in depth and understanding them, that we begin to find our balance and our happiness. And in the answer to question 726, when the spirits tell us that, and we quote, natural sufferings are the only ones that enable you to evolve because they come from God. Intentional sufferings serve no purpose when they have no value for the good of others. So it's a very interesting thought for us to think about, that the natural sufferings are what enable us to evolve because they come from God. They are almost ordained. God allows them to happen. But the actual sufferings that we impose upon ourselves, thinking that we are going to evolve, are in actuality, they don't serve a purpose when they're not serving a purpose, nor to ourselves nor to others. So it's an interesting concept that instead of thinking we needed to deprive ourselves of things, why not instead go out, labor for the good of others, go to our neighbor, our community, and see how we or I can be of service to them. That is more beautiful. That is more of what God and the higher spirituality is imploring us and is inspiring us to do. And it's a beautiful quote in the answer to 726. And it states, the spirits tell us, when you only have yourselves in mind in the intentional hardships to which you subject yourselves, it is selfishness. When you suffer for others, it is a practice of charity. Such are the precepts of Christ. It's beautiful for us to think about that. What are our intentions when we do things? Is it for myself or is it for others? And truly that is a question that only we ourselves can answer, and God knows our true answer in our heart. So the final words of the spirits are that we should whip our spirit and not our body, mortified our pride, and stifle our selfishness, which they refer to as being the serpent that devours our heart, And we will do more for our progress than self-inflictions that no longer have a place in this day and age. Very interesting for us to think about, because there was a time where people did actually used to inflict physical pain on their physical bodies, thinking that would help them, that suffering would help them to evolve. And in actuality, the true suffering that we evolve from is the suffering that God ordains, if we can so use that type of phrase. So let us think in terms of our evolution, in terms of our progress. If we wish to evolve, if we wish to grow and learn, let us learn by helping one another, by cooperating with the higher spirituality. And if you find yourself asking, well, how do I do that? Well, first things first. Find time to pray, meditate, and ask for assistance to find better ways to serve as a better vessel, a better vehicle for higher spirituality, for God to use you in all areas of your life and to open up your eyes to serve more your neighbor and to, as the spirits say, to stifle our selfishness. So, dear friends, we encourage you to go and read this particular chapter, the entire Spirit's book. Enlighten yourselves. And until next time, we wish you many blessings.
Well, dear listener, we are still in the first chapter of this fantastic book called The Gospel According to Spiritism. In all honesty, my friend, Kardec's writings are so smart and complete that sometimes we feel that just by reading them to you, we could be doing a good work. But it just so happens that if on the one hand they are complete, on the other, so much has happened in the last century that astonishingly supports the Spirit's teachings that we believe it is worth to comment on them. One amazing point, my friend, is exactly the topic under our focus today, which is the alliance between science and religion. Impossible not to quote Kardec. Science and religion are two levers of human intelligence, one revealing the laws of the material world, the other revealing those of the moral world. But seeing that these laws have the same principle, which is God, they cannot contradict themselves. If they contradict one another, it would stand to reason that one was right and the other wrong. However, God could not have intended the destruction of his own work. Therefore, the incompatibility that apparently exists between these ideas proves that they have been incorrectly interpreted due to the excessive exclusiveness on both sides. For this reason, we have a conflict which has given rise to incredulity and intolerance. We have now reached the phase upon this planet when the teachings of Christ must be completed and the intentional veil cast over some parts of these teachings lifted. A time when science must desist in its exclusive materialism, so taking into consideration the spiritual element. When religion must cease to ignore the organic and immutable law of matter, so that both may become two forces, each leaning on each other and advancing together in mutual concourse. Then religion, no longer discredited by science and no longer being able to oppose the overwhelming logic of the facts, will acquire an unshakable power because it will be in agreement with reason. He goes on saying that science and religion could not come together till this time, as they could only see matters according to their exclusive points of view, which in turn caused them to be reciprocally repelled. Something more was needed to enable them to close the gap that separated them, something which could unite them. This missing link is contained in the knowledge of the laws which govern the spiritual universe and its relationship with the world of matter. These laws are as immutable as those which govern the movement of the planet and the existence of all the beings. Once this relationship could be proved by experiments, A new light would begin to shine as faith began to be directed towards reason, and reason, finding nothing illogical in faith, could finally defeat materialism. My friend, lots of information can be found in studying the old Spiritist teachings that are today scientific truths. Scientific paradigms have been changing at an astonishing pace. We could be talking here for hours about Spiritist epistemology, but for now, I would like you to know that there is something on the planet that is this missing linkage between science and religion. We are speaking about Spiritism. If on both sides, traditional science and religion have rejected the idea of investigating the paranormal realities, Spiritism long ago took a step ahead and used the ethically guided mediumship to approach the knowledge that would allow us to understand the truths, or that the truths of life are, be them scientific, philosophical, moral, religious, laws that come from God. In a book psychographed by Chico Xavier called In the Domains of Mediumship, right in its introduction, the Spirit Emmanuel states, we quote, "Chemists and physicists, geometricians and mathematicians, raised to the condition of investigators of truth, are today, without willing to be, the priests of the Spirit, because as a consequence to their painstaking studies, the materialism and atheism will be forced to disappear for lack of matter, the basis which supports their negativist speculations." Free translation. Thank you so much, my friend.
Wow, dear listener, it's amazing. So much to learn, so much to nourish our souls, and we really hope that the program today has brought new hope to you, new perspectives, and mostly new nourishment for your soul, because we need to nourish our souls every day to grow strong. Right now, we'd like to invite you to join forces with us. We need to practice collective prayer. It's not easy. To do an individual prayer is one thing. To do a collective one requires new elements, not only concentration, not only openness of the heart, but also knowing how to be with others, one heart, one mind. It's not simple, but it is possible. We're going to pray for parents. We're going to pray for parents, and if you go to the Gospel According to Spiritism, chapter 28 is a collection of Spiritist prayers. As every program we say, there are prayers here for everything, not as a formula, but as a great way for us to attune to higher spirits at dramatic times in our lives, at difficult times. And there is here, in item 53, Kardec explains the importance of praying for the newborn child. And he says, spirits reach perfection only after having passed through the trials of corporeal life. Those in the spirit world wait for God to allow them to take up another existence that will furnish them a means of advancement, either through the expiation of their past wrongs, by means of the difficulties they must endure, or by fulfilling a mission that is useful to humankind. Their advancement and future happiness will be proportional to the manner in which they will have employed the time they must spend on the earth. The job of guiding their first steps and of directing them toward the good is entrusted to their parents. We will answer to God for the way they will have fulfilled their mandate. It is in order to facilitate its execution that God made parental and filial love a law of nature, a law that is never violated with impunity. And there are several prayers here. We're going to read and pray together, you and us. Let us pray together. Prayer for the parents and the children who are being born. God of goodness, since you saw it fit to allow the spirit of this child to come once again to endure the earthly trials destined to enable it to progress, grant this spirit your light, so that it may learn to acknowledge, love, and worship you. By your omnipotence, enable this soul to regenerate itself in the fount of your divine teachings. Under the guidance of its guardian angel, may its intelligence grow, develop, and make it aspire to draw closer and closer to you. May the knowledge of Spiritism be shining the light that enlightens it through the choices of its life. Finally, may it learn to appreciate the full extent of your love that puts us to the test in order to purify us. Lord of life, cast your parental eye upon the family to whom you have entrusted this soul. May they understand the importance of their mission and enable good seeds to germinate in this child until the day in which, through its own aspirations, it can ascend by itself to you. Dear God, deign to answer this humble prayer in the name and by the merit of that one who said, "Let the little children come unto me, for the kingdom of heaven is for those who are like them." And so be it. Dear listener, we hope you're feeling much better than we started here today, because together we really conquered a lot of steps here together. We pray for peace on the earth, and let us contribute to this peace by doing the best we can throughout these days. And let us not forget, next week there is a most beautiful program as well. It's going to be about the ins and outs of mediumship with a scholar in Spiritism, Janet Duncan from the United Kingdom. She's a great woman, a wonderful spiritist, an 85-year-old woman with great experience in Spiritism and especially mediumship. So she's going to be here with us, telling us about the ins and outs of mediumship. For now, we wish you lots of blessings, and let us get closer and closer to God as we multiply the talents we've been given. Thank you, dear listener, and for all those who have been helping us. Many blessings.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.